Another major reason we use biostimulants as opposed to chemical fertilization is that there is a basic rule in a designed ecosystem of balance, and that is there is a rich and diverse insect population that forms the first layer of protection in a healthy ecosystem and will be the food that many higher species such as your birds will feed on. And we don't want to eliminate completely any of these food groups for the animals because they all feed into a balanced ecosystem that we are in pursuit of when we use the Cheap to Keep Trees and Landscapes protocol and we're applying biostimulants. Chemicals are like steroids for lawns. There is an effect, a good effect, but there is a health risk. It'll kill your beneficial organisms in the soil, and it degrades soil structure by killing the microbes that we talked about. Now, biostimulation can be used in combination with other chemical fertilization systems, and we'll discuss how that works because I know a lot of you are using chemical fertilization, and I'm not telling you not to. What I am saying is that whatever you use needs to be concentrated into the particular location where it'll do the most good in the critical root zones, at the roots, in the fine fibrous non-woody roots that we've demonstrated to you in our previous sessions, and that is where these substances need to be applied and stay, whether they are chemical or biostimulants. Both are expensive. Both have consequences if they move off-site and into another area, not the least of which is the loss of benefits to the organism that you're feeding. So let's understand that biostimulants and chemical fertilization each have their place when they are sensibly used. All right, we're talking about some characteristics of biostimulants that produce what we refer to as biofertility, something that perpetuates itself, feeds itself, and gets better and better, versus chemical applications which have to be renewed sometime multiple times per year and many times in increased strengths because there's no accumulative effect. And so let me give you 7 distinct benefits, and then I'm going to contrast it with your chemical fertility. And it's best if you have these available to you, let your customer make this decision. Let them decide what's more important to them, because isn't that what we're all about, is trying to serve their needs? And so here are 7 distinct benefits of biofertility, and I read. Biofertility is applied using inoculants that provide beneficial microbes to soil and roots. Biofertility is self-sustaining as long as organic material is available in the soil or from living roots. Our third benefit is biofertility is produced in small quantities, but is very localized in the critical root zones where it is needed. Number 4, biofertility does not leach in significant amounts because it is absorbed as soon as it is produced. Number 5, biofertility does not contribute to groundwater contamination, what is referred to as non-point source contamination. Number 6, biofertility does not produce a sudden growth spurt of plants because biofertility builds and accrues gradually to become sustainable. And I'm going to tell you exactly why that's so important in just a minute. And last but not least is biofertility is compatible with chemical fertility. I want you to understand that they can be sensibly combined, but you are the one that must draw the line between them. Biofertilizers can be incorporated into an existing program based on traditional chemical fertilizers. Often, some reductions can be made in amounts of chemical fertilizers as you go on, and you gradually wean the system off of one and onto another as you and your customers understand the benefits. Now, with chemical fertilizers and herbicides, as we said before, they're like steroids, and they have a nice big immediate shock to the system that produces a great burst of growth, many times nice bright green leaves. And in order to stop those chemicals, we encourage you to leave the clippings, mark your turf with organic substances, overseed with clover, for example, water carefully, and control weeds and insects gently, not with these massive applications of poisons that kill everything indiscriminately, because as we've said before, they are part of the food chain, and if you want a balanced designed ecosystem that is cheap to keep, then one system, the waste of one, feeds the growth of another. And it's very, very important that you understand that there's room for both of these systems, once again, when sensibly used, and the customer understands that each year, if they pay a little more for Bio-Fertility now, it's less in the future, and there are additional benefits within nutrient cycling that they won't get any other way. Our biostimulants or chemical fertilizers, either one, can be applied using 4 techniques. We have foliar, we have drench, we have bark on the trees and plants themselves, and pressure injection. And you're going to see examples of each one of them and how they are applied. Now, in the recent past, over the last several years, we have discovered that our foliar applied nutrients in a pure and soluble form are absorbed more efficiently by foliage than those supplied in the soil. Nutrient translocation, in other words, when the plant gets the benefit of it to all parts of the plant, is generally more rapid when nutrients are applied to the leaves and foliage. The foliar feeding will not by itself provide complete nutrition program, but it's something that you can use that will quickly solve a deficiency, such as a yellowing or a chlorosis or something that is very noticeable in terms of a deficiency, and you can cure that right away. And then, as we have demonstrated in our mixture, go back to the tank, add another amendment to that, and then go drench or foliar. We usually use a separate sprayer to apply to the bark because there are additional surfactants on the market now that can be used so that certain bark insects and pests can be dealt with locally by spraying it right there on the bark. Many times a lot of this insect infestation is localized around the root collar. Why? Because most of them, as you're going to see, are covered and smothered. They've got volcano mulches around them, and the insects have a holiday forming their habitat next to the bark, feeding on the nutrients from the tree and creating all kinds of problems for the long-term health, growth, and maintenance of the tree. And so that's just some of the examples that I'd like to press, and we've got one other major benefit that we'll talk about just in a minute. As arborist and lawn care operators, we have to rethink the so-called traditional models of tree and landscape care and reinvent ourselves so that we can satisfy this new normal of increased customer expectations and less money available to pay for it. And we use the Cheap to Keep Trees and Landscape protocol that produces what we refer to as a new view of home ecology. And this new view home ecology, trees and their microbial neighbors, all the biostimulants that we have used to infect the soil below them, engaged in a balanced, cooperative, creative exchange, an economy that we can mimic. One of the other superpowers of nature that we can take advantage of. We can't allow many of our trees and elements of our landscape to act as they do naturally outside in the wild with the leaves dropping and rotting and forming soil and all that. We have to interrupt that process and begin to replace it with these types of techniques. And this is how I'm suggesting that we rethink our traditional models. And biostimulation is a real easy way. And we've also found it easy, at least in North Carolina, when we custom mix these things together, we can leave them for the owners and give them specific instructions on how to mix it and let them apply these in smaller amounts over a longer period of time, rather than having my guys show up on the site and having to apply all 200 gallons at one time. If they stayed there, it would be much more beneficial to apply, even to some of the bigger trees, 15, 20, 30 gallons at a time, wait for a rain, wait for the soil conditions to improve, and then go back and do another 30 gallons. And do that repeatedly over a period of time. And this is how you can reinvent yourself and your business model by downloading some of these responsibilities onto the customer. And you need to check your state laws, make sure you're legal, make sure that you're not doing anything that you're not supposed to do. Everything has to be properly labeled. It can be pre-mixed, and in North Carolina, when it's a custom mixture, we're legal. And so check out that aspect of it, and this is an excellent way to get a great response in the tree and landscape without having to ask the customer for a lot of money, because we can wholesale this product to them for $300 for 200 gallons, or we can come out and apply it for $600, $700, or $800 depending on where they might be located. And so customer sweat equity is an important aspect, and I want you to remember that.